College sports presented by the Fanboys. All right, guys. It's Brad with College SportsCast. And just as we're beginning here, it looks like maybe John Roberts is trying to jump on with us. Let's see if I can get him in the screen.
Yes.
There we go. There's John Roberts. One of my partners is with me. And welcome to College SportsCast, guys. We are sponsored by Bluegrass Brads, which is what is behind me. This is where I film and tape this show. And we are sponsoring College SportsCast, the Fanboys, and Greenville Sports Media as well. So I have a guest on with me tonight. We want to welcome Daniel Shirley from The Athletic to our show. Welcome, Daniel.
Hey, appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to it.
Daniel is senior editor of college football for The Athletic, and he also does ESPN Radio Midday Sports Zone in Georgia. Is that right?
Yep. Here in Macon, Georgia. We're about an hour south of Atlanta, right on the interstate.
Right, and y'all talk a lot of SEC and I know you also do a Clemson podcast too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. A friend of mine, Bill Zimmerman, we graduated together from Clemson in 1993, a long time ago, and we started last summer.
That's when I graduated high school, by the way.
Did you really? There you go. We started last summer.
You don't want to know where I was.
Yeah, hey, don't tell us that. We don't want to know that.
He's a little younger. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. But we started last summer and having a ball doing it.
And so you can give a shout out to all the stuff you want to right now. I'll let you kind of plug your stuff, Daniel.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If work for The Athletic, I've been with The Athletic since 2018. Been with the college football staff for 2 years. Was the Atlanta editor before that, and love the job. It's a great place to work. We've got a lot of great college football writers. So just go to theathletic.com for that. Our radio show, if you just go to really our Twitter feed is our best spot. If you just go to @RussandDaniel, do the show with Russ Brown. Russ works for the Georgia Southern radio network on their football games. So we talk a lot of Falcons and Hawks and Braves and Georgia football and Georgia Tech and Georgia Southern, pretty much anything in the state of Georgia. And then our Clemson podcast is clemsonkickoff.com. If you go there, Bill Zimmerman and I do that, and it's a blast. So got a lot going on for sure.
All right, man. We appreciate you being on with us. I will say this right off the top. If by any chance you could help get Kyle Tucker on the show for us, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm in Kentucky. I'm a huge Kentucky fan, and I would greatly appreciate getting Kyle Tucker on on College SportsCast.
I'll talk to Kyle. Kyle and I worked together at SEC Country before we both moved over.
Yeah, he was with he hasn't been with the Athletic too awful long. I don't think a couple of years maybe.
Probably 2019, somewhere around there, 2018, somewhere around there. So he started a little bit after I did. So, but Kyle was one of my writers at SEC Country, so I know Kyle well.
Okay. I'm just saying, I thought I'd throw that out there.
I'll do my best. I'll see what he says.
I mean, as a Kentucky fan. So John Roberts is the one that's with us and joining us. He is an Auburn alum.
Okay.
So he graduated. He's an early, like 06 or 07. I can't remember one of the years.
7.
From Auburn. So he's a big Auburn fan, also a big baseball fan as well.
Yep.
So
Currently
was
has the
a-
Braves,
right?
got the Braves on TV right now.
yeah,
So,
and he was a manager for the Auburn baseball team while he's in school and stuff like that.
correct. We had Josh Donaldson, former Brave Josh Donaldson, was on the team, and I have gone blank on him. There's been at least one other Brave that played for Auburn at the time that I was at Auburn. So while a lot of people will point to Tim Hudson, I'm not 10 years younger than Tim.
There you go.
So yeah.
My son's a manager on the Clemson football team right now, so
There you go.
I know how those long hours, and that's a lot of work for sure.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta love that for sure.
Yes.
You done some writing too for the baseball team when you were there too, didn't you? Or was that after?
I did not write while I was there. I did a little bit of writing on my own.
On your own
Afterwards.
after?
Yes,
Okay.
but not a lot. Not enough to like really say that I did writing.
Well, I mean, you done
I started something and
pieces.
then never really kept it going.
Any writing counts.
Yes. And I mean, I had a couple things that were in the Auburn game day programs, from the 2007 season. I think I had 4 articles on the game day program. So like, I think a couple of them were honoring the 1957 national championship. So I had 2 articles that dealt with the 57 national championship team. I think one was a player profile, and I cannot remember what the other one was. May have been it was a coach profile. It was Coach Yox, who was the strength and conditioning coach at that time.
Okay.
So
Right.
There you go.
Daniel,
writing count. Yes.
Yeah.
We will. We're going to kind of dive into ACC and SEC talk tonight with you, and we appreciate you being here with us. I guess I'll start out with, since it just ended a few days ago, I'll start out with the NFL draft. The NFL draft just ended on Saturday. The last 4 rounds. I'm trying to count in my head. The last 4 rounds on Saturday. And, I guess Georgia-wise, it was a pretty good draft.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, you look at not everybody went to the Eagles. I guess it feels like everybody from Georgia went to the Eagles. But
and everybody from Bama went to the Texans, right?
Yes, right.
I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. I promise.
But what was, I think, 23 guys from the state of Georgia who played high school football in the state of Georgia were drafted, which, again, shows the talent in this state. And, and the thing about University of Georgia is I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon. I mean, Kirby has it going. And, I think you could look at another long list of guys be drafted next year. Seth Emerson did a story for us on Sunday at The Athletic and talked about the number of players who were drafted off that 2021 championship team. And there were 40 guys on that team who've been drafted the last 2 years. So,
wow.
It's just remarkable.
Off the 21 team?
Yeah, I think the number's right. Maybe I need to double check that, but
That's
I'm sorry, it was 25 have been drafted off those teams. I'm sorry, off that team, and and just remarkable the number of talented players.
I think they had 10 over the weekend this past weekend.
It's 25. Yeah, it's 25 have been drafted. So, just remarkable what Kirby Smart has going on at Georgia. And I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. I think next year they'll have, another 8, 9, 10 guys drafted for sure.
Well, I mean, they will. I will say this. In the offseason here this year, it does seem like Georgia's had quite a few players transfer out.
They have. And guys want to play, right? And if it looks like they're not going to get that shot, or maybe they're not going to play as much as they feel like they should, then now they have that avenue to go find somewhere else to play. And,
I mean, Bear Alexander was a perfect example of that. Recently, he was one that put his name in the second window here. And, Bear Alexander played some and was probably in line to possibly be a starter, I would think. He played in the college football playoffs and played well. Had a sack in a game, I know, for sure. Maybe a tackle for loss as well. Would
there be anything else to that because of the fact that he was lined up to be? I mean, most people thought that he would be a starter or that he was, in line to be a starter. Then would there be something else that led to it other than just him wanting out? Because, I mean, there's not really anything that makes sense for the Bear Alexander one.
Yeah, that one was surprising. Like when A.D. Mitchell transferred and he's going back to Texas and he's going to be near his family and those kinds of things, that one didn't really surprise you too much.
Right.
The Bear Alexander one really kind of came out of nowhere. But then, you hear about NIL and you hear about guys just wanting a fresh start. I mean, guys, I thought he was going to be the next, Jordan Davis and then Jalen Carter. And then I thought Bear Alexander was going to be that next guy. And now he's at USC. So, there could be any number of reasons why he transferred, but it really did kind of come out of nowhere and was kind of a surprise. But
where was he from? Where was he from?
Where is Bear from? He's not from Georgia. He's from Texas. So he's a little bit outside of his, zone being in Georgia. But, the thing about Georgia is, like I said earlier, they're so talented that 5-6 years ago, people would be freaking out about a guy like Bear Alexander leaving. And now they've just kind of said, okay, he left. We've probably got 3 or 4 guys behind him who are really
the next
good.
Guy.
And we're going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, the whole deal with Bear, I just thought that there was just at least some other circumstance that's not, privy to the public.
Yeah.
We just thought we'd ask you about it and if there was something else to it or something,
I haven't heard anything other than, that guys just don't feel like it's the right fit. There's now obviously people are going to look at NIL, those kinds of things. I haven't heard anything about in the locker room or anything like that.
Right. And USC and Riley out there in the NIL is probably had something to do with it too, I would.
Yeah, I would think that there's a possibility of NIL or something like that brought into it. But I just thought I would ask the question just because it seems, obviously it's very out of nowhere and strange. So that was one that was
right.
Well,
right.
And it wasn't one where you said, and it wasn't one where you said, oh, well, he's not going to play. Yeah, he's transferring, right?
Right.
You see those happen and they make a lot of sense. That one was one. I mean, I was actually on vacation and I saw it pop up on my notifications and I said, wow, that's a big one.
That's
a big name.
Was.
So.
Yeah.
So let me ask you what you really think. So the Philadelphia Eagles apparently just want to turn themselves into the 2021 Georgia defense.
Yeah, because 5 guys off that team now.
They now have 5 Georgia defenders off of that 2021 defense.
Well, the Washington Commanders tried to do this with Alabama, and it didn't really true.
Davis. They drafted Carter. They drafted Nolan Smith, and they drafted Ringo.
And drafted Ringo too, right? People forget about Ringo because he was in the later rounds. But
Hey, Ringo as a 4th round pick was a steal.
I think so too. I think he probably needs to play safety in the NFL.
He might.
But he's still a steal.
For a 4th round pick, I think Ringo was a steal.
I agree. I agree. Because he could be a really good safety. I just don't know that he's a cornerback in the NFL, but there's nothing wrong with playing safety, right?
Right.
I mean, if he's a really good safety and you got him in the 4th round.
Nabbing Nolan Smith for the 30th pick is a steal as well.
Yeah, a lot of people talked about Jalen Carter being a steal, and I think he is at 10 or at 9 if he can, be focused. But I think Nolan Smith is a much bigger steal at 30.
I
I
do
don't,
too.
because I think Nolan Smith is a guy you can plug in your locker room. He's going to be a great fit. He's going to be a great teammate. And guys, it's not like he's just some afterthought. He's not just some guy that works hard. I mean, he was a 5-star player coming out of high school.
Yep.
I believe he was the number 1 recruit in the nation in that class. So he's a really talented guy. And to get him at 30, I think 5 or 6 years from now, we're going to be saying, wait, they got him 30th?
Yes.
There were 29 guys
saying
drafted in front of him?
We've had several people on our show before the draft doing a mock draft. We had a Seattle Seahawks insider on with us, Green Bay Packers, and we've done several shows. And I've been talking Nolan Smith for a month, and I was like, the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, absolutely got an A+ for their draft.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of people are saying, like Dane Brugler for us at The Athletic had them as the number 1 class. I think a lot of people would agree with that for sure. It's a great class, at least as we get started.
Right.
Now they
on paper,
right.
On paper, absolutely. I think it's an A+ draft class for the Philadelphia Eagles. I was very impressed with that. And then I'm going to slide into talking about some other draft stuff here. And let's talk about the quarterbacks, because 3 of them are SEC guys. And then you got CJ Stroud. That's the other one. But, Will Levis slides all the way to the 2nd round, which for some was a surprise. I'll just say it, was dead wrong. He did slide way, way further than I thought he would.
Yeah, you had him number 1.
No, I didn't have him number 1. Come on now. I had Bryce Young number 1. Right. No, I said he was likely going 4 where Anthony Richardson was. And I think that was the 2 that they were kind of debating over, was Richardson and Will Levis. So the most interesting thing to me now after this is this. 3 of them are in the same division, AFC South. They're going to play each other. They're going to play each other twice a year and battle over the AFC South Division Championship for the next 4 or 5 years at least, and right. I think it's going to be a very interesting dynamic in that division. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And remember, Trevor Lawrence is the other one, the quarterback in that division, younger guy as well.
Right, from Clemson.
I don't think any of them are on his level. I mean, as far as what they could be, this early in their career, I think they're a little bit more developmental guys than Trevor was. But even Trevor, it took a year and a kind of a really bad coaching staff before he could get it figured out, his 2nd year. So I think that it's a really interesting dynamic. Like you said, that they're all in the same division. I like Bryce Young a lot. I mean, he's got everything you want, right? He's a great teammate. He's got enough of an arm. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He knows the game. He's 2 steps ahead of everybody on the field. So he's got all that. I worry a little bit about his size, and not even his height, but just his frame. Is he going to get beat up? But I also think that he went to a team that's better than having the number 1 pick, right? The Panthers aren't a team that earned the number 1 pick. They traded up and got the number 1 pick. So I think that it's not like he's going to a team that has just this awful offensive line where he's going to get destroyed behind that line. So
they did trade away one of their top receivers to get that pick.
Right, they did. DJ Moore went with the picks to the Bears. So that's true. But I like what the Panthers are doing. So we'll see. And that division's winnable, right? I mean, the NFC South's not the greatest division in the NFL either. But those other three guys, you're right, all in the same division. I think it's going to be really, really interesting. And the thing about it is we've seen in the NFL, history has proven not all those guys are going to hit. So, which ones are going to not hit is going to be the key for these franchises probably for the next decade.
Unless it's the 83 draft.
Well, that's true. Right. The 83 draft is the
I can't remember what year.
You weren't born. Don't talk about the 83 draft.
Yeah, he was a kid a little kid back then.
Not born. He's right.
Not born. I remember the 83 draft.
84.
Okay.
That's
84. Okay, so he wasn't even born.
Now look, if they hit, then if they all hit, then they've got an all-time draft, right? But it's not likely.
You say that all three of them are in the same division, or three of the four in the same division, but all four of them are in the South.
Right. It's
interesting. In the South division.
Yeah.
Just three are in the ASC, one's in the NFC.
In the NFC, right.
Yeah. Right.
I think CJ Stroud has the highest floor of the four. Now, I don't know that he has the highest ceiling, right? If Anthony Richardson is what some people think he is, watch out. But I think CJ is I think he's the least likely to be a bust, if that's the right way to put it.
Yeah,
I kind of agree with that.
Anthony's got the biggest gap between ceiling and floor.
He also has the lowest floor, I think.
Yeah, Bryce is, here because of just the fact that he's not, it's really just going to be
Bryce
the size.
is probably the most
size
likely to be the steady guy.
Right. But like CJ could be this.
Right.
Where his floor moves up, but his ceiling moves up a little bit too, just because he's got a bigger frame as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of them went to first year coaches too, right? I believe. I think didn't all four of them go to first year head coaches?
Except for Levis. Vrabel's been there a year.
Vrabel, except for Levis. Right. That's right.
Yeah,
Levis is the one.
Vrabel's been there a few years. I can't remember now exactly how many.
Those three guys, three in the first round, all went to first-year head coaches. Now, I'll tell you, I do like DeMeco Ryans a lot and what he can do with the Texans. But I think he also probably has the most work to do to rebuild the franchise over the Colts and the Panthers, because the Texans have been pretty bad for a couple of years.
Right.
Josh, I'll get to your questions with Daniel in a few minutes. I just want you to know. I appreciate you being on with us.
And really, the Colts, they really seemed like they were more of a quarterback away, as opposed to not having a better quarterback would have put them in a better spot.
That's part of the reason why Anthony Richardson, for me, surprised me about the Colts.
They're taking a risk
because Anthony Richardson is the least likely of the four to be ready day one.
Probably. Now Levis doesn't have to be, right? I don't think Levis is going to play.
Not now. At Tennessee, it's going to be Ryan Tannehill probably this year.
The Colts definitely took the biggest swing. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And now if they hit on him, again, is he, if he's what some experts say he is, then watch out, but
right.
But he definitely, I could see him not starting this year. I could see him being
Richardson?
one of those developmental guys.
I would be surprised if he does start this year. I really would.
Yeah. Unless there's an injury or something and they just halfway through the season.
That could happen. Yeah, that could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think Bryce Young and CJ Stroud start.
I think both of them start. And Josh he's a Kentucky guy. So he's asking about Levis and saying that he thinks that the Colts will regret not picking Levis over Richardson. Richardson does have immense talent,
right?
Athletic talent. And if he can learn to harness that on the field, then you have a monster of a quarterback. The problem is he hasn't shown that so far, at the chance he's had, even at Florida.
Right. Consistently.
He's had moments. Like I've had a lot of people tell me, well, look what he did in the third quarter against Georgia. And it blew your mind. Well, what about the other 3 quarters, right?
I was like, that's one quarter.
Yeah.
Just tell him that with his team, they just play the Eagles and it'll be the same thing.
I mean, he's raw.
He's playing those same guys, right?
Same guys.
He's raw, I mean, his talent is raw. His, everything about him is completely raw. It's going to have to be harnessed kind of in a way. That's the way I would put it. Because it's like, on the run, I mean, the guy can just sling a ball and look like it's going to go 30 yards and it goes 70,
Right.
and a lot of guys can't do that. Will Levis can kind of do it out of those 4.
Yeah, but he looks like he's going to throw it 70 yards when he does it, as opposed to Richardson can just flick it and it'll go 70 yards.
But out of those 4, Levis can also do that as well, but I don't think Stroud and Young can do that.
It's like DeMarcus Russell back in the day.
Yeah, he is. He kind of reminds me of DeMarcus Russell,
except he's more athletic.
Yeah, but I mean his arm and everything.
Yeah. DeMarcus Russell could sit down at the 50-yard line and throw it out at Tiger Stadium.
Yeah. Here's the thing I'll say about that. The first time you do that in a game will be the first time that's ever happened in the NFL, right? I mean, what good does that do? I saw the Will Levis clip of him on his knees throwing the ball through the goalpost. Right. Okay, you're never going to do that in a game. That doesn't.
No, because you're down. No.
Right, exactly. I think the thing about Richardson is a way I look at it. He's a piece of clay that you can say, okay, I can make these coaches look at these guys and say, I can make that piece of clay what it needs to be, right? And he's got the physical attributes that these other guys don't have. But I can also watch him play and think, oh my gosh, how is that guy a top 5 pick in the NFL draft? Right. Other than we all know that what you did in college has 0 impact on what you're going to be in the NFL.
Listen,
0.
I am a diehard for
ego.
Life Kentucky fan. And if Kentucky and Brad White can make Anthony Richardson look like they did last year, then I know that there's some NFL teams that can do the same.
Again, it's the ego. Like
it is.
That's it.
100%.
That's all I'm going to say about it.
Every coach in this world, every coach in this country thinks I can make him be what he looks like. Every one of them. And make some of them, if you can, then my goodness, then watch what he's going to become in the NFL,
And then
he was like 40% against Kentucky, had 4 rushing yards. I don't know if y'all remember that game, but he looked awful against Brad White in Kentucky last year.
Yeah, I think it is a huge risk, and I think that the Colts, maybe they felt like they needed to take a big swing. I don't know, but look, I mean, Tom Brady was never a full-time starter in college, and then he became the most accomplished quarterback in the history of the league.
You're right.
I mean, I know Anthony hasn't played much. You used the word, Brad, he's raw. He's absolutely raw. Yeah. But they're drafting on potential. And if he reaches the potential, then you change the franchise for 2 decades.
Right. At least the next 15, 16 years. I mean, at the very least. All right. So we'll move on from our draft talk and we'll kind of dig into some spring football camps. Let's start with Georgia. Georgia's having to replace an awful lot of people and players. We were talking about their drafts over the last 2 years earlier. And they're having to replace an awful lot of people, including their quarterback, Stetson Bennett, who was a 4th-round pick in this past draft. And How is that going? What does the Georgia quarterback room look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Carson Beck. I'll be surprised if he doesn't start the opening game. The other guys behind him, Carson's a junior. The other two guys behind him, Brock Vandergriff is a sophomore. He's a redshirt sophomore, and then Gunnar Stockton is a redshirt freshman. None of them transferred, so that's a win. Looks like
absolutely
right.
No, the transfer window's closed now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this year they may be
right. Yeah. They're not. I think they're.
I would have after.
I would have bet money one of them would have transferred by Sunday, right when the transfer window closed. But they all stayed.
Yeah.
But I do think that Carson Beck will be the starter the opening day. He's a big guy. He's got the arm. He's not the athlete that Stetson Bennett was, and so I think they lose some of that part of the offense as far as him moving and running and those kinds of things. But he can make every throw, and he's got a team around him. The defense could be as good as it has been the last couple of years. I'll be surprised if it's not. And he's got weapons around him. I mean, he still has Brock Bowers. They've got plenty of talent.
Bowers is going to be a stud.
Yes. And then their offensive line is going to be really, really good. I really feel like their offensive line might be the best it's been these last couple of years this coming year. And that makes things a lot easier for a first-time starting quarterback.
For a new quarterback. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to dig in there, and then let's since you do some Clemson stuff, let's dig into Clemson spring football, and how has Dabo got his team looking?
Well,
after spring practice this year.
Yeah, I think everything is kind of a wait and see offensively, right? Because of the Garrett Riley move, hiring him as the offensive coordinator. I think that's a reset for that offense, and using it.
How is that looking?
Well, it's hard to say. Like I heard good things about practice. I get a little bit of insight from my son working with the team at practice, but it really, the spring game, they had so many guys out, right? Will Shipley didn't play. A bunch of the wide receivers didn't play. They had a couple offensive linemen out. And then the defense really kind of controlled the day. So, but it's hard. It's
kind of hard to judge
right?
then. Yeah.
So, but I think the new offense will fit Cade Klubnik at quarterback. I think it fits the offensive linemen they have. And then I think, the biggest thing for me as somebody who watches a lot of Clemson football is I think they're going to start using the middle of the field a lot more and the tight ends, which they had kind of gotten away from that the last couple of years. So that should be a big boost for the offense coming up this season.
So does Klubnik, is he going to be able to do any of the Duggins, just off the hook, just break down and just make a play, because that's what Riley is coming from. And he's coming from, a quarterback that just could wing
never
it.
Say die.
And never die. It
too,
just
right?
He was a never say die.
Yeah.
That's all he was.
And I mean, he would just wing it and make the play, whatever it was, whether it was with his arm, with his feet, whatever it was, he was just going to make the play no matter what.
Yeah. The coaches are saying really good things about Klubnik, his leadership. He's a really good athlete and he can really run. And that's another thing. And obviously in the spring game, you're not going to let him run. Right. So there were some sacks in the spring game that wouldn't be sacks in the game because he could have gotten out of the pocket. But you're not going to let him do that and get hurt in the spring game. So, but he's got a good enough arm. I don't think he has a huge arm, but I think he's got a good enough arm. He's got a great head on his shoulders. He knows the game. And again, kind of like, I'm not comparing him to Bryce Young, but I mean, he's a couple of steps ahead of the game. Now, the Tennessee game, he didn't show that in the Orange Bowl. He held the ball too long. He's trying to make a play like you're talking about and made mistakes because of that. I think this offense is a get the ball out of your hands, get it to your guys as quick as possible, and then let them make plays. And then we'll see, how this works out. Look, I've been around that offense a lot. I was in Valdosta, working at the Valdosta Daily Times.
The air raid definitely is get the ball out of your hands quick, let the guys make plays. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah. But my first job in college, out of college, was covering Hal Mumme and Mike Leach and Dana Holgerson. Yeah. And that was the kind of genesis of that offense. And
they were fun to watch. Yes. I can tell you that.
I want to hear some stories from Hal Mumme, Dana Holgerson, Mike Leach, and then the guy that's I think he's the offensive coordinator at USC. What's his name? Why am I going blank on his name?
He wasn't on that staff, but Guy Morse.
Right. From that offense. Once they split from Hal Mumme, he was after he had played quarterback at Texas Tech, he was like a grad assistant immediately with all of them.
Right.
Outside of Hal Mumme, because by that time they had split from Hal.
Right.
Yeah. Mumme, they kind of split from Mumme.
Right, but I'm trying to remember. What was the guy? The guy that was at Arizona, the Arizona head coach that's no longer there. He's now at USC, I think.
Yeah, my brain's freezing on me here.
Yeah, but yeah,
I don't know. I can't think of who you're talking about.
You're talking about Cliff.
Yes, Kingsbury was also
right.
Kingsbury,
but he was grad assistant behind.
Well, he played quarterback for Leach.
But they all lived in like the same house.
Right. Well, I'll tell you this.
Texas Tech.
When I was in Valdosta, those guys were on the staff. Guy Morris was on that staff. He later became the head coach at Baylor. So all of those guys were on one staff, right? And I covered Chris Hatcher. He played quarterback. He actually worked at Kentucky for Hal Mumme.
He was a Kentucky.
And he's the Stanford head coach.
Stanford head coach now. Actually, Chris and I did a book together. I wrote a book about Chris a few years ago. So, Mumme and Leach. Leach was the best. You hear the stories about Leach, and you hear him talking about pirates and all this stuff. I was hearing that stuff in '93. And thinking, this guy is different, right? And I mean, it was
very
a blast.
Different.
And sees the game differently.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being at a Valdosta State women's basketball game and sitting at the press table, and he came to the game and sat down next to me, and just started breaking down the defenses of a women's basketball game.
And he's
on the money, knew exactly what he was talking about. So, I mean, he was just fun to be around. As anybody. And guys, I was 23, 24 at the time and around that crew. I mean, it was
so my brother-in-law played at Kentucky for Hal Mumme and Mike Leach. His name is Jeff Zerker.
Okay.
He was a safety. He was a safety on the team that Tim Couch took to the Outback Bowl.
Tim Couch, number one pick, right?
Yep. Yeah, Jeff Zerker was the safety and the leading tackler of the team, actually.
Is that a good thing when you're safety
as a safety?
Yeah,
probably not. But hey, Jeff, probably not. But I'm gonna tell you right now, Jeff would tear somebody's head off. I can tell you that.
Well, I mean, I get that. I'm just saying that doesn't really look good for the defense.
No. That's probably not the best deal that he's the leading tackler on the team. But now I'm gonna tell you right now, Jeff has some stories too about Mumme and Leach.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he does. When we did the book with Chris Hatcher, I called Mike, and this is 10, 12, 20 years after he and I had worked together, and got him on the phone, and I expected to talk to him for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I know he's a coach. He's busy. I wasn't gonna. He stayed on the phone for like an hour and a half, and and it was just him talking. I asked like 2 questions, I think, and he had some great stuff. And
Josh says Mike's going to be missed. He was such a great person.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And how many guys changed the game, right? How many coaches? We talk about innovators. How many coaches come along and they change the game? Those guys changed the game.
Absolutely, they changed the offense for sure. They even changed how defenses had to, go about playing because of their offense.
Right. No doubt.
Absolutely.
Well, you have to defend the whole field now. You didn't used to have to do that. It wasn't a horizontal game back in the day. I mean, you kind of, if you could
inside the tackles,
tackles, you won, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. Yeah. All right. So, John, I'm going to get to a little bit of Auburn news here because we're going to kind of go into some. We're going to kind of go into some rest of the ACC and SEC talk here. And the first thing I'm going to hit on is TJ Finley hit the transfer portal, and the news come out today, but apparently he had to put the paperwork in before Sunday.
Oh, okay. Because I think what he was doing was waiting until he graduated, and he's supposed to graduate. I think graduation is next weekend. So the news, it does take about 48 hours for them to actually hit the portal after they put their name in, I think. Right.
So, it closed Sunday night at midnight. But the news didn't really come out until this afternoon that TJ Finley is transferring from Auburn. And I don't know.
But he should be in.
You're the senior editor football guy. I just wanted to ask you what you thought about.
He should be in as a grad transfer because I think he graduates next.
He'll probably be a grad transfer. Yeah.
Was that a surprise? I don't think that.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. They were all over the radio today talking about that they expected once he graduated that he was out. But I mean, if the portal was, 2 days ago, then he had to go ahead and put it in,
right?
Knowing
he absolutely had to.
He would have known. He would have known to.
Yeah, I mean, he would have known
to the last minute.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think Auburn is as interesting a team as there is in the SEC this year, because
you got we were talking about Hal. You got Hugh Freeze, and his offense basically going to a team that has never really ran an offense like that. They don't have the personnel for an offense like that.
There's two guys that Auburn. So had TJ not transferred, then they wouldn't necessarily need to go get a quarterback. But I think they've got two guys that they're looking at right now at trying to add. One of them, I think, had shoulder surgery, so he is still rehabbing. I think that's oh God, I'm going blank, but I think he may have come from Nebraska. They got a guy from Nebraska and a guy from Michigan State they're looking at.
Okay. Peyton Thorne just entered. Are they looking at Peyton Thorne? Yeah.
He's one of them.
From Michigan State.
Okay, he's one of them. He's the one from Michigan State. And then from Nebraska, it's I think he's down. He's in Auburn right now, or at least his parents are.
Thompson?
Yes.
Okay.
He's the other one.
Okay. I think either one of the if they get Peyton Thorne, that's a huge get for them. I really believe that, because he's a really, really good player, and he played a lot of good football at Michigan State, and he just put his name in Sunday. I mean, that was kind of a surprise. That was a big splash when he put his name in the portal on Sunday.
So those are two guys that I've heard that Auburn's looking at is Casey Thompson and Peyton Thorne.
Well, I think Hugh Freeze has a big job ahead of him to completely revamp that roster to run his offense.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But he should get some time to do that too, right? I would think his bosses would be
a couple of 2 or 3 years anyway.
I think now that the board got who they wanted to get, I think he will get more time. He will have the luxury of all the time and the tools.
Oh, I think he'll get 3 years
that other coaches wouldn't have gotten because of the fact that they were not unanimous choices by, the board.
The people who pay the bills, right?
That's right. The money.
I think he ends a lot of the infighting, right? I mean, because that seems to have been the problem the last couple of years.
Correct.
And even if you wanted the other guys or you wanted Kevin Steele, I think Hugh Freeze appeases you. And now we'll see what he can do. But I mean, he did a heck of a job at Liberty. I mean, you can't deny. I know everybody's going to make jokes about what happened
with an Auburn quarterback.
Right. So I think he's a heck of a coach. There's no doubt about that.
I agree.
And I think he'll do a good. I mean, that's what I'm saying is as far as being interesting. Look, Georgia, obviously Alabama, Tennessee, those LSU, those teams are interesting because they're really good. But as far as the rest of the group, Auburn jumps out at me because I want to see what he can do, like you said, with kind of a mixed match roster.
I'll tell you a team down there that jumps out at me, and that's Texas A&M, and that's simply because
you just want to watch the train wreck. That's it.
I can't help it, man.
Because
I mean,
Auburn's interesting because
Jimbo
they're either going to
Fisher and now Bobby Petrino. They don't matter. Like it's going to be. It's going to be must-see TV, if you ask me.
Again, they followed each other at Auburn as offensive coordinators, which is funny. But, Auburn's interesting only because they could be really good or they could be really bad, but they're going to be real fun to watch burn or, absolutely wreck the conference.
Well, and how many games does it take before Jimbo takes back the play calling? I mean, he's not going to want to give up the play calling, right? Two.
Hey,
you got
and
two?
If that happens, Petrino is going to lose his, what?
Yeah.
Might wreck a motorcycle. Who knows?
No doubt. Yeah. He might leave another note in the locker room for the players, like he did.
I'm telling you, it's going to be must-see TV down there at Texas A&M. I'm not even playing.
You're from the Athletic. Jason Kirk. Do you know of him?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard him? Has he ever done his Bobby Petrino voice?
Not from me. I have not heard that. I may have to ask him to talk to me about that. Let me know about that.
Just let him do it. It's funny.
I'll have to ask him about that.
It's very creepy the way that he does it.
Well, I mean, there's some creepiness there. I
mean, right. And we've had he's on a podcast that I listen to, and we've had one of the other members of the podcast on our show, Ryan Nanny.
Okay.
And so, but Jason he's a very interesting guy and can do a lot of different things, and his voices that he tends to do are hilarious.
Well, I'll have to ask Jason to do me some voices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so we've kind of covered the SEC West. What do you think about the East? Do you think that Tennessee is going to challenge for Georgia or no?
Yeah. I think probably very similar to last year. Like I think Tennessee's going to be really good. But when they play, I don't think Georgia will beat Tennessee, I believe.
Yeah.
And will they shut Tennessee down like they did last year? Maybe not. But I do think they'll win the game. And look, I mean, how many games on Georgia's schedule do you look at and say they're not going to be favored?
There's
none.
I don't think there's any. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, how many do you think they won't win by double digits?
I mean, there's only 2, maybe 3 games that they don't win by double digits, and that's.
Are you sure about that?
that's pretty small. I mean, it may be one. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think there.
really.
I don't think there is one.
Right. Not as we sit here in May looking ahead. Who knows once the season starts? Maybe Carson Beck's terrible and he's not the guy. Then that changes everything. But as I sit here right now, I don't see a game on their schedule that they won't win by double digits, at least until you get to the SEC championship game.
Well, I mean, South Carolina showed some life at the end of the season.
That was at Georgia. If that were in Columbia, I would fully agree.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's some games. So if you want me to throw out a couple of games off of Georgia's schedule, I would throw out South Carolina. They showed some life. Georgia does have to go to Kentucky. It's probably still going to be at least a 2-touchdown win, I would think.
That looks like that game's in Athens. Is that not in Athens?
That game's in Athens.
Yeah.
Is it in Athens this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, they do go to Tennessee. Look, if you said name 2 games that are going to be the toughest games, I think it's Tennessee and South Carolina. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I love what Shane Beamer has done at South Carolina. He has done a heck of a job in 2 years. And for them to beat Tennessee and to beat Clemson in Clemson,
the way they did,
the way they did. I was at that Clemson South Carolina game, and they made Clemson look pretty bad late in that game and dominated really the second half.
And they drummed Tennessee.
Yeah, and they beat Tennessee off the field. So, and they've got a lot of momentum in recruiting. I know that won't help. What they're doing right now, recruiting won't help this year's team, but they recruited well this past year. So he's doing a heck of a job. So those would be probably the 2 toughest games, but I'd still say Georgia's going to win both of them by 14 points, just as we talk about them, here in May.
Yeah. I mean, I would think that they're going to be, I would think that they're going to be at least 14 to 17 point favorites in almost every game.
Well, so outside of those 3 teams, you're talking about South Carolina, you're talking about Tennessee, and you're talking about Georgia. I mean, you got Kentucky that I think that'll be there. And then the other 3 teams, I think, are probably the low end of the SEC.
Yeah, I would agree. It's going to take Billy Napier time at Florida to get them straight.
And that's throwing Florida in that mix. I mean, I just don't think Florida's there right now. He's still at least a whole nother recruiting cycle away.
I agree, because I don't know that people realize just how big of a mess he took over. Right. I know that people didn't like, a lot of people anyway, didn't like the Shane Beamer hire. I thought it was a good hire because I know he was part of that staff when they had their best success with Steve Spurrier. So he knows what it takes to win at South Carolina. I don't think South Carolina was a bigger mess than Florida. I think Florida was a much bigger mess than a lot of people thought.
I think so too.
It's going to take time. Yeah. So, and then Vandy, I mean, look, Clark's a good coach. It's just there are hurdles at Vandy that how many people can overcome. Missouri, I think, they'll win 5 or 6 games and they'll be happy about it.
Missouri will pose a threat to some teams at home just because they can play good defense.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they could have beat Georgia last year.
They had a shot at beating Georgia last year.
Yeah, what they have to do is keep away with the ball and hold it as long as they can, waste as much time, and keep that score as low as possible. But again, it generally will happen at home versus away. And Georgia plays them in Athens. So
right.
That will be a slaughter.
And they got Georgia's attention after the third quarter.
Oh yeah, last year. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
all right,
I think Florida, to me, is intriguing because of how much has to be fixed. I think Tennessee and South Carolina are good teams. I really believe that. But those other teams, I just think like Mark Stoops has done a heck of a job at Kentucky. I mean, just a heck of a job. And
Absolutely.
I think they're probably right there with South Carolina.
With South Carolina.
And
Yep.
Tennessee for the second, third, fourth.
I think
spot in
South
the division.
Carolina. I think South Carolina is more steady than what Tennessee is. I think Tennessee is more volatile this year, just because I don't think, unlike Georgia, who can just reload, Tennessee may not be in that position to be able to do that.
Oh, I don't think they are.
So with them losing who they've
yeah.
lost, I don't think that they're going to. I mean, I think that
the wide receivers, the
right. I think
defensive line, the
I
offensive line, the quarterback,
offensively, as long as the quarterback can execute the plan that Heupel draws up, then they should be able to at least have a fairly decent offense. I just don't know what the other side's going to look like.
Defense has kind of been their Achilles heel the last 2 years anyway.
Right. So I think that they're going – I think more in that regard. I think that's where they take their step back. So, like, the offense just has to outscore everybody. And if they run into a good defense like a Georgia, they may – they could look really bad.
Well,
pedestrian.
Yeah, I won't be surprised by any order of those second, third, and fourth teams.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if South Carolina's second and Tennessee's third, and
I think the
fourth,
only surprise would be if Missouri or Vanderbilt were number 2.
Exactly.
That would be that's your surprise.
Even Florida. If Florida's there, I will be shocked. I mean,
I wouldn't. I mean, again, over like if you had a Vandy or a Missouri as the number 2 team, then I think everybody will go, the world is turned upside down.
Well, if Kentucky finishes second and Tennessee's fourth, I won't be surprised. I really think those 3 teams are very comparable.
Right.
Very close. Yeah.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to the ACC real quick. I want to ask you about this. So a lot of people who are doing polls, early polls for next year, I have noticed that there is a lot of people that's putting Florida State ahead of Clemson in the ACC. Is that something that you think could happen this coming year?
It could happen. I mean, there's some unknowns with Clemson's offense, like we talked about a little bit earlier. I like what Mike Norvell and his staff have done at Florida State, but I don't think they're quite ready to get over the hump at Clemson, right? Just yet. Look, I think they're probably the second best team. And and the ACC has gotten rid of, divisions. So they could play each other twice. And I will be surprised if they don't play each other twice. Play each other. They play each other in September in Clemson. And then and that's early enough that whoever loses that game can certainly get back and play in the ACC championship game. But I do think that Clemson and Florida State are elevated over the next tier in the ACC. And now who is that? North Carolina, Miami,
Pittsburgh.
Pitt, right. Pitt's been really good the last couple of years.
They have.
So I think those 3 would probably be next. And then you kind of throw everybody up. Wake. Don't forget about Wake. I know that Sam Hartman has left, but Wake is going to be really good. So I would put them in that second group.
NC State's always kind of right there somewhere too, around
where they'll lose some stupid game and be out of it.
Yeah.
But now they have the Armstrong kid from UVA who's transferred there to play quarterback. So we'll see how that helps. And so I would say, that Wake, Pitt, North Carolina, Miami, NC State is the second group. And then everybody else after that, you just kind of throw in a hat and see what happens.
My question to you.
So Brom at Louisville, this will be his first year, but you give Brom another couple of 2 or 3 years, and I think Brom will have Louisville making a little bit of noise in the ACC.
I thought that was one of the most underrated hires of the offseason, right?
Jeff
And
Brom's a good coach.
I
Listen,
think
I'm a Kentucky guy, and I don't like him because he's
Yeah.
a Louisville guy, okay? But I can fully say Jeff Brom is a great coach. He really
and
is.
I know, look, they don't hire him I don't think they were going to fire Scott Satterfield, right? Satterfield left, goes to Cincinnati. I think
Right.
Louisville upgraded. I really
Yeah,
do
they
think
did.
they upgraded.
They absolutely did. Yeah, I think it's a great hire for them. Jeff Brom I'm close to Western Kentucky here where I am, and he was a coach at Western Kentucky before Purdue. I mean, he's a really, really good coach, Jeff Brom is.
Yeah.
He goes to Purdue, turns them around. I mean, heck, Aiden O'Connell got drafted he was a walk-on, for God's sakes.
Right.
He got drafted in the NFL draft like 4th round or something, this past weekend. So, Jeff Brom can take, like I said, he can take a walk-on and now he's a 4th round draft pick. So that tells you a lot about what Jeff Brom can do. So I do expect Louisville to make a little noise. Now, it probably won't happen this year. They've lost a lot, transfers. He's having to replace a lot. But down the road, that's a team that I think will make a little noise. Now, I want to ask you about this in the ACC. I'm hearing all kinds of stuff about Drake May in North Carolina.
Right.
Okay. Potential 1st-round draft pick for next year and all that. Possible Heisman Trophy candidate. My question to you is Drake May really that much better than Sam Hartman at Wake Forest and Devin Leary at NC State over the last year or two?
I think if you're looking at him as an NFL prospect, yes, because of the talent, right? All the stuff that we talked about with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson and those guys in this year's draft. I think he's intriguing because of he can throw the ball from any angle. He can throw the ball a long way. He can do a lot of good things.
There's been some good quarterbacks that's left out of the ACC this past year. So,
that's right. Hartman left for sure. I think he's a good player. I just don't know. Does that equal wins? Right. If for North Carolina, if he wants to have all the stats and have all the highlights and be a top 5 pick, I think he can do all that. I really do. But how many games are they going to win? I don't know about that. Because they're not going to stop anybody. They didn't stop anybody last year.
No.
They lost
Auburn
their
defensive coordinator.
Right. Their offense coordinator left to go to Wisconsin, Phil Longo. So how does that change what they do? We'll see. But he's a talent. There's no doubt about that. But I just don't know how many games they're going to win. And that's going to be they're we talked about intriguing. In the ACC, they're as intriguing as anybody to me because they have him, right? And usually when you have the guy at quarterback, that adds up to a lot of wins.
Well, losing Downs,
that's going to work.
Losing Downs
hurts
a lot too off of that team.
No doubt. That's true. You can't deny that for sure.
Yeah. So
I think they'll be okay, and they'll go to a bowl, but I don't see them challenging for the top of the conference.
They're going to win some games that they shouldn't win, and they're going to lose some games that they definitely shouldn't lose.
I think their ceiling is probably 9-3.
Right. I think you're probably right. And look, the schedule
and that's their ceiling.
Now. Right. The schedule is different now because they're not playing in the division anymore.
Right.
So that'll be different. Look, they got to play South Carolina. App State's no pushover. Minnesota's no pushover. And then the conference, they get Pitt, they get Miami. Now they do get UVA, they get Georgia Tech, but I think Duke's going to be pretty good. And then they got to go to Clemson and to NC State to wrap up their season. So I mean, what are they going to win? 7 games? Probably.
That's what I'm
somewhere
saying.
around
I
there.
mean, they're ceiling. The best I think they could do would be 3.
Right.
And they're probably 7 or 8 win team, probably.
Yep, I think that's probably right.
Somewhere in that range.
And he'll probably throw for 3,000 yards and a lot of touchdowns, and they'll lose games 40-35 or something like that.
I've got
maybe to App State as well. So
yeah, that's right.
For the ACC, I've got one for the ACC. How long, or does? How about this? It's better, I guess, to ask this one first. Does Brent Key get Georgia Tech playing where they could
legitimate football?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Hey, I like Jeff Collins as a person.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on our radio show and he was great, and we were critical of him, and he came on the show anyway, and he was great, and he was a great guest. They had to make a change,
right?
Because that was a disaster of a tenure. And you had Georgia Tech fans saying, let's focus on hash marks and not hashtags. I mean, it was a divisive 3 years.
Yeah.
I think Brent was the right hire. Now, they had to make that kind of a hire because of finances.
Right.
That was part of it.
Yeah.
But he's a Georgia Tech guy.
Right.
He cares about that program. He's been there when that program has won, when he was on the staff there as an assistant coach under Georgia Leary. And so he's seen it. He's worked for Nick Saban, so he knows what works.
He's an O-line.
He's an O-line guy, and they're going to run the ball. I like the offensive coordinator hire with Buster Faulkner coming over for Georgia. I thought that was kind of a sneaky, underrated hire. But what's the success for them this year? Going to a bowl game. That would
be a major success.
Well, but yeah. I'm more just seeing, like, can they be at the level where they are winning like 9?
Maybe not 9, but if they won 8 games,
not this year. But I'm just
right,
saying,
not this year, right? But I do think he's the guy for the long haul, right? I do think he can get them to where they're winning 8 or 9 games every year.
I mean, look, Stoops has done a great job at UK, but and he's got Kentucky where they can win 7, 8, 9, 10 a few times, but it takes a long time. You have to really be patient with a guy.
Well, I mean,
order to do that.
I mean, Jeff Collins stopped him from playing the triple option.
The triple option
had to completely change what the offense was, and you have to change all the personnel for it,
right?
Because with the triple option, you've got smaller, faster guys versus
an offensive lineman too.
Right. And then so now, even with Jeff, he still had to change the I guess the profile of the athlete. And so Brent's still got to do that. He's still got to keep it going.
Right. Well, the process has started, but it's not complete for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I know that back in 2008, Auburn went from a run, the old style of football, run first, heavy offensive line, you throw it on third down, to the air raid in 2008, which ultimately fired Tupperville, which then got Gene Chizik, which then got Gus Malzahn, where you had that, it's more of a spread, the hurry up, no huddle spread type deal, but they were kind of moving in that direction anyway. This is coming back to more traditional football, I guess, coming back from like one end of the spectrum, coming back to the center. So
right.
I
do think they'll be and I think you saw it at the end of last year when Brent took over. They were better.
Yeah, I thought they did a lot better. Absolutely.
Yeah, they did. And now they won close games, but they still won those games. right? I mean,
Yeah.
so no, I think Brent was the right guy at the right time for that program. And I really believe that he'll do a good job for them and can make them kind of what they were under Georgia Leary or Paul Johnson, win 8 or 9 games or
8, 9
7,
games. Yeah,
go to a
7,
bowl
8,
game
9
every
games.
year. Right.
Ha-
Guys, they won 9 games in 3 years.
Have a few NFL drafts and NFL players and stuff on the team, and stuff like
Calvin
that.
Johnson.
Yeah.
They went
right.
so far. They tried to get so far away from the option that they lost who they were as a program. And it was just comical how they blamed everything on Paul Johnson for 2 years. And, we can't win because of what Paul Johnson left behind. It's kind of insulting to the players who are on your roster, right? While you're saying that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
I think it was time. I love what Jay Batt has done as the AD. He made the basketball change as well. So I like the direction that Georgia Tech is heading for sure with its athletics part.
Yeah, the basketball hire impressed me. I like their basketball hire as well.
You're
talking about the AD there and their hire there. Damon Stoudemire was a splash hire for Georgia Tech basketball.
It kind of came out of nowhere. It was kind of a surprise. That was not a name.
I really liked for Georgia Tech to be able to do that and pull that. It was unheard of. It was, they was whispered, like it didn't break before it happened. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
They kept it under the table for a while and then just dropped it. I thought it was a great hire for Georgia Tech, and I'll be the first to say I was impressed by it.
Well, and think about when's the last time a new AD has had to hire the football coach and the basketball coach in his first 6 months on the job, right?
Yeah, right.
It's really kind of unheard of that now he didn't fire the football coach because he wasn't there yet, but it's really kind of unheard of for a new AD to do that. But I thought he did a great job in both hires for sure.
Yeah. All right, Daniel, I'm going to try to do 2 quick comments and questions here real quick. The first one, and then we'll kind of let you've been on with us for a while. We appreciate you being on with us. I had told you we try to keep you around a certain time, so I'm going to try to do that. But
no worries.
So I do have one question about the transfer portal in college football.
Oh my God, you're going to get started on this.
No. I want to do it fairly quick. It really is about
this will be
what do you think about what's going on at Colorado with Deion Sanders? He has got guys who just transferred in the first portal this year, went to and played spring ball with them, and now they are entering the portal a second time in 3 months. How do you feel about that? Like what happened to the one-time transfer rule and all that kind of stuff?
It's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like it, and I know my son Ben texted me last week. He's like, Dad, Colorado's got more scholarship players on basketball than they do football coming back from, last year because of all the transfers. Here's my thing. Look, I think players should be able to transfer. I think you should get one free one. And then after that, if you want to transfer again, you probably should sit out for 1 year just to slow some of this stuff down.
Yep.
But my thing is for Colorado, I don't know how you put together a team. Like if they're going to have 20 guys back from last year, scholarship guys, and then they're going to have 65 new scholarship players on the team. How do you put together a team?
I don't know.
In 4 months to play a legitimate season. I don't know how you do that.
Well, my thing is there is 5, 6, 7, 8 guys who transferred 3 months ago.
Yeah.
And they are now in the portal again.
Yeah.
Just after spring ball. That's it.
It's again, we've never seen anything like it because we didn't have the portal right before. And
Right.
now to do this, it's really
I don't know that
interesting.
I don't know that I've seen somebody transfer in and then I think this is the first time ever, right? And then transfer after spring
transfer
ball.
back out.
No, well, I mean, look, it's kind of. There's a guy on Ole Miss. I think he's on Ole Miss. Either Ole Miss. No, he was with USC. He signed with USC. Transferred before fall practice. Went to Texas. Transferred back to USC.
Right.
Was a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Highly touted wide receiver. Yeah. So we've seen it where people have done this. This is just the first time where they had a brand new coach who brought a lot of attention to the program, brought in a bunch of guys.
He brought in half of these guys and then they're leaving.
And then said, "Nah, I don't want these guys. New group. Let's go."
Yeah.
I don't know. Wild.
It's going to be a case study, right? If it works, you're going to see other teams try to do it too.
Right.
But it's almost the perfect storm too, right? Colorado won one game last year, so they're terrible.
Right.
And I think won the year before that, I think.
Right. It's Deion Sanders too. How many coaches have the cachet to do what Deion can
to pull that off? Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then will it work? I mean, we have to find out and wait and see. But it's definitely unlike anything we've ever seen in college football before.
That's true. All right, Daniel, we'll kind of get you out of here. I wanted to bring up today, they kind of dropped, or, the last couple of days, they've dropped the 2024 and 2025 12-team championship brackets. They start around the 20th of December. There's a Friday, Saturday game. And then you have the bowl games, the regular bowl games, the 31st and the 1st as the, as a round. And then you have what is now like January 9th as the championship game would be the semifinals. And then the finals is going to be on a Monday night, January 20th in 2024. So you're going to have 4 full weeks, basically, of championship football on a 12-team playoff. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on it.
My thoughts are I love every second of it. I mean, I can't wait until we have a 12-team playoff. I know some people say it's too big, it's too many. I don't see how it can be too many at 12. I think 12 is the perfect number. I like how the schedule works out, at least for these first couple of years, where they're going to play the games in weekdays, but they're spacing them out enough to where you don't have any quote short weeks or anything like that.
Right. Everybody's got like 8, 9, 10 days in between games, it looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the first round being on campus. I think that's perfect.
I like it too.
I think
I love it too.
Only way it could be better was if they played all the games on campus, but that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. So I think it's great.
You got the bowl games.
I can't wait. Right. The bowls have too much influence.
Yeah, you got the bowl games tied to it. So,
Right.
But the first round for them to play on campus like that, I mean, it's just, imagine the atmosphere going into the first round of these playoffs in 2024 at home. I mean, it's going to be so awesome, I think.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's going to take the sport to another level. I really believe it.
I've got a question.
Hey.
The first, those that get the first round, aren't there the first round buys, right? Right.
Right.
So they go first round buys. They don't get to host on campus.
No, they don't. Those will be the bowl. They'll go play in the bowl games after that.
They are the real losers.
Yeah.
Because their fans don't get to see them play a home game,
right?
Playoff game.
Yeah, it's kind of
the teams that get to host a home playoff game
will be the 6, 7, and 8 seeds.
Right, 4 through 8.
Once they get to host the home playoff game, will be the 5, 6, 7.
Right, And I think that really sucks for, the top 4 teams.
Well, it's kind of a win-lose, right? Or win-lose. I mean, if you're Georgia, do you want to host in Sanford Stadium? Sure. But you'd rather have that day off too, right?
But you'd rather have that week off.
Yes.
Yeah.
You would rather have that.
Yeah, sure.
You'd rather have that week off. But your first game, no matter what week it is,
it's not going to be at home.
Right.
Right.
And so the city of Athens or whomever is all going to lose because you would have a massive amount of influx of money that would come in for a home playoff game. But if you're a top 4 seed, you don't get that. Now, you probably make a pretty decent amount of money, for whatever bowl game that you're going to for like a New Year's Six bowl or whatever the bowl game that you're going to. But it's still, you're still not getting that ability to host a playoff game unless you just weren't good enough to be a top 4 seed. You're a 4 through 8 seed. The other thing about that too is, I had this in my head because it was the one thing I was really looking into with this. I really like the 12. I like the home playing one on campus. But what I really don't understand now, and I kind of wish the NCAA or the College Football Playoff Committee, not really necessarily the NCAA, but the College Football Playoff, would start trying to challenge the NFL.
Yeah, I could see that. And look, I understand why they're not playing these games on Saturdays and Sundays. I understand that. But at some point, and we had David Hale from ESPN was on our show last week here in Georgia, and he made this exact point that you're making. At some point, you can't just keep bowing down to the NFL, right? You got to try to stand up to the NFL. And
I actually think college football is big enough that they could do that.
I think they're big enough that they could do it. I don't think they're going to win, but I think that they could do it. At least not yet, not win yet. But I think they could challenge them.
I think they could.
I think it would be. I think it would be worth.
Right.
I think it'd be worth something.
But I like the way the schedule has worked out. I think for the first couple of years, you do try to stay away from the NFL, and then see how big. Because guys, I think this is going to be
how big it gets. Yeah, I think it will be too.
And I think it's going to be a great thing for the sport and for all of us who love college football.
Yeah, man, I saw it and I got chills and got excited about it just as soon as it dropped. Yeah. I mean, I can't wait for it. I know it's not this coming year. I wished it was. We got one more year to wait before we see all this. But it dropped, and we was going to have you on, so I wanted to bring it up. And Daniel Shirley has been with us tonight from The Athletic. He is the college football senior editor there. He also is on a Mid Georgia, Macon, Georgia ESPN radio show is Midday Sports Zone that he's on, and a Clemson podcast, Clemson Kickoff. Is that right?
That's right. Click ClemsonKickoff.com. Check us out. All
right. We appreciate Daniel being on with us. We've run a little bit longer than I said I would keep you on, so I apologize. I hope you've had a good time with us and fun with us, and come back on again. Mention our show to Kyle.
I will.
Little whisper.
I'll talk to Kyle about that tomorrow. And hey, guys, I've had a blast. I appreciate you having me on, and let me know when you want me to come on again. I'll be here.
All right, man. We really do appreciate it. Thank you, man. Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys. Right. Thanks.
All right. And it was really awesome to have Daniel Shirley on with us. He is the senior college football editor for The Athletic. He has covered college football and athletics for a long time, and so he knows a lot. He's been around and been in the game a lot, and it was a fun fun episode to be a part of.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a fun episode. So we appreciate him being on. I had to name drop, try to get Kyle Tucker because I can't get Kyle Tucker's attention another way or two. He doesn't seem to know who I am for some reason. I don't know. I can't figure that one out. He doesn't seem to know who I am. I don't know what happened there. Oh, me. All right. I'm going to hit our prize picks real quick to close out this show. We are a part of Prize Picks. You can go to prizepicks.com. Use our promo code CSCast. You can double your initial deposit up to $100. If you put down 50, you can play with 100. If you put down 100, you get 200 to play with. It is a daily fantasy sports. You can play up to 30 sports. The NBA playoffs are currently going on. It'd be a great way to have some fantasy fun. Use our code CSCast to double your money. Home for Our Troops is our 2023 nonprofit organization that we are asking anyone who is looking for a place to give some money to give to them. They are building homes for injured and wounded vets. And I'm trying to get it to come up. I've hit it a couple of times and it's not.
Hit it harder.
Yeah. All right. There it is.
Dang it.
There we go. I'm trying to get it to come up while I was talking, but it wasn't happening. So anyway, they're building homes for injured and wounded vets. You can give to them for every dollar that you give. 90 cents of that dollar goes towards rebuilding their lives by building them homes. And they will do that anywhere in the country. If they are from Tennessee and they want to move to Michigan, they will build them a house in Michigan. So go to www.hfotusa.org to give. All right. We appreciate Daniel, Shirley, for being on with us tonight. John, come on right as we were opening up.
During the intro.
Yeah, and I was like, I told him, I said, I'm supposed to have another guy on. I don't know if he's going to make it or not, but I appreciate you coming on with me and having
I couldn't make fun of you. I couldn't say, "Oh, look, there's Frozen Brad," because
yeah, I know
I wasn't on there, but I could see you frozen. I was like, "Oh, look, there he is." And then I would
you come on right as it was doing all
pixelating.
that. Yeah,
and I was like, "Oh, pixelating." Oh,
yeah.
He's back. Yay! Couldn't do that. Not this time.
Right. Yeah. So, but having Daniel on, he's really, really knowledgeable. Like I said, he's senior editor for college football for The Athletic and also ESPN Radio, out of Macon, Georgia. He does a show where they cover SEC and a lot of Georgia's. I mean, actually, Georgia athletics all over the state. They cover Georgia Tech and Georgia and
Mercer.
the Braves, and you know,
right out of Macon, so Mercer, right?
Right, yeah,
Mercer. Yeah,
and but I mean they cover the pro sports, you know, Falcons, you know, the Hawks,
the Gwinnett Stripers, yep,
all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So they are Midday Sports Zone on ESPN Radio out of Macon, Georgia.
I wonder if they do their show at night.
My guess is they do it midday. That'd be my guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just,
you read the joke.
It's just a guess. I mean,
yes.
I didn't look it up. So, I mean,
no.
You know.
I bet it's 10-2.
I didn't look it up. I mean, with a name like that, I mean, you know.
It's done at 4 a.m.
All right, guys. Hopefully, we'll be with you on Thursday night. We were not with you this past Sunday. Guys had a lot of stuff they were doing, and we just took a Sunday off. So hopefully, we'll be with you on Thursday night. I've talked to somebody about possibly being on Sunday, but I got to get back with him. If we can get him, this guy is from rivals.com, if I can get him. So I'm working on it. I'll let you know maybe next on Thursday's show if I can get him for Sunday. So we will see you guys Thursday night. And thanks for joining College Sportscast. It's been a fun show, man.